Well, hello, and welcome to the IAQ Symposium. I hope you're enjoying the training as much as I am. We've had some great sessions already. Dr. Taylor talking about the health benefits of humidity. Rob Ambrosetti, man, I love anything that he does. We've introduced some new technology in the Haven home air monitor. I suggest you stick around to hear Cassidy Kuchenbecker talking about chemical sensitivities. My name is Greg Joutras, and I do parts and supplies for Goodman Manufacturing. Today, we're going to talk about IAQ for commercial applications. The good news is IAQ technology and concepts don't change that much for commercial, but there are some differences. You might have to work with an engineer. There is likely a much broader range of equipment options, and there will at least be more pieces of equipment and could be larger pieces of equipment. There's also usually a lot more people to deal with, and that can definitely complicate things. There are three different types of IAQ problems: particulates, microbials, and gases. Now, this is important, and I always start with it because if you can figure out what type of problem you're dealing with, you can then offer a solution. Okay, so what is a particulate? Particulate is that dust, dander, pollen. It's the things I like to say make people sneeze. In commercial, you might also see things like wood dust or industrial dust. Microbials are single cell living organisms. These are the things that get into your body and make you sick. So particulate make you sneeze while microbials make you sick. In commercial, you will be dealing with more people. There will be a larger volume of people. So by default, you will have more microbials and germs to deal with. Then we get into gases, and I like to divide gases into two categories: odors and VOCs. Now, we all know what odors are. We have pets, we cook, we have kids, but in the office, there could be different odors. Burnt popcorn can ruin the office environment for a few hours. Working hard, long hours can lead to body odor. Perfume, cologne, washroom odors. Those are all things you can see in an office. And this is before we talk about pet stores, nail salons, locker rooms, etc. Now, most gases have an odor, but we're in HVAC. We deal with a gas that has no odor and can harm you. Carbon monoxide is a gas. You can't smell it. It can harm you. So I say that gases have an odor, but just know that most do, but not all do. VOCs can cause a lot of issues. Little things like headache, nausea, but there can also be long-term issues like liver damage, kidney damage. Now, there's different levels of exposure. There is long-term exposure, like a maintenance worker is dealing with harsh cleaning chemicals every day for 40 years, and they end up having breathing problems. There could be high-level exposures, like someone spills a barrel of chemicals and just gets a huge whiff of it. So there's different levels of VOC exposure. The real problem, and mainly what we're dealing with, are VOCs that you can't get away from. They're everywhere. They're in the carpet. They're in the paint. They're in the ceiling tiles. Copy machines produce it. This is before we start dealing with anything like harsh cleaning chemicals or other things like welding fumes. There's building specific problems. Maybe you've heard the term sick building syndrome. Now, this is where a person or a group of people go to work and they feel sick. They leave and they feel better. I'm not talking about a Monday morning hangover, I'm talking about a real issue. And if I go into that building and I find that the copy machines are producing too much ozone, they're producing too much VOCs. Well, at that point, we've got a lot of solutions. We can move the people. We can move the copy machines. We can bring in fresh air. We can add an air purifier. There's a lot of solutions to that problem. My point is that's not a sick building. That was copy machines were too close to humans. Now, if I go in that same building and people are having the same problem, but I can't find what's causing it, that is labeled a sick building because there's an issue and we don't know what it is. Now, does that mean we can't solve it? Absolutely not. We can bring in fresh air. We can add an air purifier. A lot of times that will fix those types of problems. One of the other common situations we run into is dirty sock syndrome. Now, this is where you walk into a space and it smells musty, it's damp, it's dingy. And what I can tell you is that the owner is going to say, hey, I've got mold. I know I've got mold because I smell it. And what I would tell you is that usually they're wrong because usually it's bacteria. More specifically, it's bacteria on the coil, the HVAC coil. Now, if you think about what bacteria does, it decomposes stuff that's on your coil. And the problem with bacteria is you can't see it. You can have millions and millions of colonies of bacteria, and without a microscope, you're not going to be able to see it. And we have a lot of products that not only get rid of the odor, but also kill that bacteria at the source. One of the newest phenomenons in the IAQ industry is what we call highly touched surfaces. It's also referred to as highly touched objects. This is the study of how long bad things live on things we touch every day. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire list, but C. diff can hang around for about 5 months. The flu, 48 hours. So think about that the next time somebody around you sneezes. Sneezes come out extremely fast, excess of 100 miles per hour. When we sneeze, we create droplets. Droplets is the technical term. I like to call it wet nastiness. And when we sneeze, we create some 40,000 droplets. And today, given the pandemic, we are starting to see studies about how sneezes cause anxiety. Now, this is the idea that when somebody sneezes, we think we're going to get sick. And I can tell you, hiding under a desk isn't going to help. And you should not cough in public. I think they might make it illegal. When someone sneezes, we are always worried about being in that 3 to 5 feet range where we might get some of that wet nastiness on us. But most of those droplets don't hit the ground. They stay suspended in the air indefinitely. In fact, the droplets are so small that they go from room to room via the HVAC system. The problem with that is these droplets are so small, they get into the deepest, darkest parts of our lungs, and that's why we get sick. Every year, there's a new bug. I go back to H1N1, swine flu, bird flu, anthrax, you name it. but nothing has hit the world like the Rona. It has brought the world to its knees. We offer a ton of IAQ solutions for commercial applications. Now, I want you to think back to where I started. Particulate, microbial, and gases. Remember those particulates? They're dust, dander, pollen, things that make you sneeze. Well, I said a very important word there, and that word is pollen. Now, just look at what pollen can do. I could literally make a cough syrup commercial out of what pollen can do, especially if people are allergic to it. And how productive will a worker be with this list of symptoms? Do you notice the similarity? Enough said on that. When you think about pollen, pollen has its own website. Pollen has its own app. You can track pollen. You can see the best and worst cities. You can even keep a pollen diary. My point is, who is cashing in on pollen? It is online in retail sales. I see businesses all the time with portable filters and purifiers. Do you think those people are concerned with indoor air quality? Portable units are not cheap. You, as the HVAC contractor, are the IAQ expert. You can offer a solution for the entire space, not just a small room. Business owners just don't know to ask the HVAC contractor. We breathe a lot, somewhere between 6 and 12 liters every minute. 6 liters if you're at your desk watching a training, 12 liters if you're running a marathon. What I want you to think about is if you're drinking 6 liters of water every minute, how concerned would you be with the water you are putting in your body? In the air we breathe is solids. And we breathe in an estimated 2 tablespoons every day. Now, when I say solids, I'm talking about things like dirt, dust mite fecal matter, some pretty nasty stuff. Now, I'll say for the average young male, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Bodies do a really good job at getting rid of that stuff. But for people with allergies, asthma, autoimmune diseases, chemical sensitivities, this stuff builds up over time and wreaks havoc on the immune system. So if I bottom line it, if you don't do something to stop the bad stuff in the air, you end up breathing it. People have been told to wear masks outside of their home, where air is 5 times better than it is inside. Many businesses are requiring masks to be worn by employees and customers. So masks are being mandated. What if we could put a mask over the entire building? That is exactly what a good media air cleaner does. A good filter will capture particulate until it can be disposed of properly. Recommendations for treating air with patients that have COVID include the use of hospital-grade filtration. Let's take a closer look at what that means for virus-sized particulate. Guys, a MERV 8 is not doing much. A MERV 13 is a little bit better, but a HEPA unit is basically a straight line across the top of this chart. When we talk about particulate size, we measure in microns. And a micron is really, really small. You cannot see it without a microscope, excuse me. It is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. We offer a full line of media air cleaners to fit small CFM air handling units. They're painted to match the equipment and they're designed to fit perfectly. Our media air cleaners come with a MERV 11 filter, but can be upgraded to a MERV 13 with carbon. We offer 1-inch, 2-inch, and 4-inch replacement filters, and we also have MERV 11 and MERV 13 filters for return air grills. Our HEPA units come in 2 flavors. We have True HEPA at 99.97% effective at 0.3 microns. We also have that same unit with UV lights pre-installed. Right now, we are working on a portable design to fit more applications. We offer MERV 13 filters for Daikin VRV systems, designed to fit perfectly with those units. This is the commercial hybrid electronic air cleaner. It comes in a 1-inch or 2-inch thickness. It is 24 volts and catches on a replaceable media. This one is a real problem solver for rooftop units. As we move into UV lights, we have an extensive line to fit most applications. UV lights are getting a ton of attention right now. Why? Because it is proven technology. Simply, it works. It kills germs. We're also starting to see UV lights used in many new ways. Examples are transportation hubs and disinfecting PPE equipment. ASHRAE, the Bible of the HVAC industry, says that some infectious diseases can be transmitted through inhalation. They tell owners to give high priority to filtration and UV lights. They can be installed for a moderate cost during the design phase, but can be quickly installed to reduce the severity of an outbreak. Also, ASHRAE will continue to research ventilation, filtration, and UV lights. But notice what's not on there. Bipolar ionization is not on there. The National Institute of Health says UVC can decrease the bioburden of pathogens in real-world applications. Science Daily, they did a study that finds UV lights help kill the coronavirus. Here is Harvard saying UV lights have been around for a long time. They are proven and they are safe. Let's look at different wavelengths. And I'll be the first to tell you this is old information, but I bring it up because we're starting to see manufacturers move away from tried and true UVC to other wavelengths, and you need to know what you are buying. UVA, this is what I call the black light spectrum. You can look at it all day and it's not going to hurt you. It might take you back to your college days, but this one is not going to break down cells. UVB, this is what I call the suntan spectrum. It's way more potent than UVA, but it still takes a long time to work. It's not like you walk into the sun and you're burnt to a crisp. It takes hours and hours to break down cells. UVC is where we start to kill germs, viruses, bacteria, and mold spores. Now, I like to say kill, but what we're really doing is scrambling the DNA or the RNA of that cell. We neuter it and render it harmless. Killing it is just easier for me to say. We have UV lights for fan coils, air handling units, furnaces. They can be duct mounted or they can be unit mounted. We have single bulb and we also have dual bulb. We have UV lights for larger air handling units. We also use these sometimes for rooftop units. These span anywhere from 2 feet long to 5 feet long. We have UV lights for ductless and VRV applications. We also use these in equipment that is really tight, like some small air handling units. Rooftop units can come in a lot of different sizes. Our UV lights can be mounted outdoors. They have a NEMA rated box and watertight connections, or they can be put inside the unit. Introducing the carbon unit. Now, this is what I like to call UV lights on steroids. This unit still cleans the coil, but it also helps with VOCs and odors. And I want you to focus on, this is a passive technology type unit. And we're going to talk more about that. So this carbon unit has a UV light that does clean the coil, while the carbon does a great job with odors, formaldehyde, and VOCs. The nice thing about this technology is that it is 100% ozone free. So we use this in a lot of applications where we cannot add anything to the space, or for people that are chemically sensitive. The packaging is retail ready, so it's great for showing a building owner or a building manager. It really looks like they're getting something for their money. This is my grade school drawing to illustrate passive technology. We have germs and odors in the space. The blower kicks on and the carbon traps them and the UV light kills them. What if you could see all the things in the air that you were breathing? What if you could see all the things that you touch that end up getting in your body? On average, we touch our face 23 times an hour. What if you could kill germs on surfaces? Passive units have to wait for the germs to come to it. Active units go out and get them. It is the difference between a bug zapper and a heat-seeking missile. The active unit is dual technology. It uses oxidation to help with germs, viruses, bacteria, odors, VOCs, and it uses bipolar ionization to help with particulates, that dust, dander, pollen. Active units clean the air and the surface. Now, the surface is the most important word on this slide because we're talking about desks, doorknobs, railings, things we touch all the time. Again, this unit has two technologies. It's like buying two separate units all in one. It does both oxidation and bipolar ionization. This unit also has a retail-ready box. It is great for presenting to building engineers and building managers. There's also bullet points on the box to show what it does. Now, this drawing is to illustrate the difference between passive technology and active technology. We have germs, viruses, bacteria, odors in the space. The active unit comes on, it creates photoionic oxidation. I like to call them scrubbing bubbles because it's easier for me. They go into the space, they search, seek, and destroy the bad stuff, getting rid of it. Where to use this? You can use it pretty much in every single home, but how do you not walk down the street without seeing 10 places that could use this? Nail salons, hair salons, gyms, daycares. Are you kidding me? Those kids are like little petri dishes, and there's diapers. Where not to use this may be more important than where to use it. You can't use it anywhere you want the smell. It doesn't know the difference between a good smell and a bad smell. You can't use it where they are cooking with yeast. Think bread, donuts, beer, things like that. You also cannot use it anywhere where they are taking cultures. I found out the hard way that we cure everyone. Now we're moving into ventilation. Berkeley Labs did a study, and they found that half of the classrooms didn't meet the standards for ventilation. And remember that code is the minimum you can do. They also found that fresh air reduces absences. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, says ventilation can help remove droplets from the air. They also say ventilation with a good filter removes particulate. According to ASHRAE, ventilation is #1 in a multi-pronged solution for controlling bacteria and viruses. OSHA, they look at safe working conditions for workers. Right now, for corona response, they say use ventilation and good filters to protect workers. We have a ton of solutions for ventilation. In low CFM options where there's maybe tight space constraints, we have both ERVs and HRVs. In commercial units, we have ERVs, HRVs. We have units that can go inside, units that can go outside. There's a huge CFM range. We also have units that work directly with our VRV equipment. We have specialized HRVs for pool rooms. We also have smaller dehumidifiers that can also bring in fresh air. Let's take a look at a few different applications. This was a football training and office center. Now, usually we get these calls to look at the fitness area or maybe the locker rooms, but this call was about the office smelling like hamburger. The cafeteria exhaust was really close to the rooftop unit for the office. So here we added some purifiers to that rooftop unit and knocked out the hamburger smell. Locker rooms. Now, we usually get this call to get rid of the odor, but this was that they kept having outbreaks of MRSA. And MRSA is that staph infection on steroids. Bad news. Now here, we needed more fresh air, but it turns out they had plenty of fresh air. We just had to work with the controls to make sure it was working properly and they were getting as enough as they needed. We also added air purifiers, helped with the odors and helped with that MRSA situation. Interesting note, they did not do anything for the away team's locker room, but they did want portable units for when they traveled. Zoos. Now, the first thing to note is that zoos can be harder to deal with than hospitals. They care deeply for those animals. Now, normally we get calls to work in the bird area or the reptile area, and it's usually that they want to reduce the odor. So the solution is more fresh air, add filters, and add purifiers. Now, one note, reptiles absorb moisture through their body. So you have to be extra careful when you're dealing with reptiles. Nail salons. Now, most likely they will have high VOCs. And I can tell you that usually they need fresh air. Also tell you through experience that most of them won't do that. So it usually boils down to upgraded filters and adding air purifiers. They usually want pretty inexpensive options. This one was a strange situation in a strip mall. Got a call from an owner explaining that the nail salon was complaining about odors. Now, you would think it is VOCs from the nails, but no, there was a strong garlic and onion smell coming from the caterer a few doors down. So here we had to put purifiers with blowers for the exhaust at the caterer. We couldn't directly install them into the exhaust. We also put filters and purifiers in the nail salon and got rid of that garlic and onion smell. Clubhouse. This is a clubhouse for active adults, and they didn't have an issue. They wanted to provide a safe and clean facility for the community. So we used small media air cleaners on the air handling units. We brought in ventilation and we added air purifiers. Now with this one, I want you to note that it is still in the design phase. This one has not been installed quite yet. Historically, calls from nursing homes and retirement communities are for odors. We want to eliminate whatever odor is going on. Today, we find it's more about protecting the occupants and the workers. Now, these rooms typically have small PTAC units, and this is where we'd use that small air purifier designed for PTACs. Nursing homes usually have common areas with larger air handling units where they bring in fresh air, and if needs be, we can add air purifiers to those units as well. Hotels are similar in design to nursing homes because they mostly use PTAC, but we are just now starting to see engagement from that sector. Most cigar lounges rely on exhaust, and what I would say heavy exhaust. Now, in these applications, I usually add a HEPA unit or two. I'll add carbon filters and some purifiers. Now, usually I like to bring in fresh air where it's possible, but it's often outside the scope of what we can do. One other note with cigar lounges, it is usually not the cigar lounge that is complaining. It's usually the neighbors. This was an abandoned factory. And after they redid it and moved in, they had extremely high relative humidity. In one wall was growing mold. The process they used included water in part of the production. And we were seeing things like 80% relative humidity. So here we used a bunch of dehumidifiers and we also used air purifiers. Casinos can be challenging. Often they have close to 100% outside air. There's a lot of smoke, there's a lot of cooking odors, and there's a lot of people. So here we use PCO on incoming air, we use purifiers to the supply. And if it makes sense, we'll use filters. Some things that we've learned here, a lot of times casinos will have high returns and high supplies. So if you add bipolar ionization, you make particulates bigger. Bigger particulates go to the ground. When you have high returns, a lot of them won't make it back to the filter. Let's look at some commercial equipment. Small CFM air handlers are common. even more so now with the popularity of VRV. There are a lot of options with this type of equipment. You can use a media air cleaner. You can use an electronic air cleaner. You can use a hybrid air cleaner. You can use UV lights. You can use purifiers, either carbon or oxidation. You've got a ton of options when you're dealing with a standard small CFM air handler. When you're dealing with smaller fan coils, stacker units, or pancake coils, in these you have very limited space, so your choices are pretty limited. You can use small UV lights. You can use the small PTAC style air purifier. Maybe you can use a hybrid 1-inch electronic air cleaner. And sometimes we've seen where you can use a return air grill filter, but you're pretty limited with the amount of space you have. Unit ventilators. Now, we see these a lot in schools. These guys already bring in fresh air. You still have limited space, but you can usually install a small air purifier, and if it's really tight in there, you can use a PTAC style air purifier. Ductless. Now, with ductless, if you're using an air handling unit, what I would call a ducted ductless, you have a ton of options. But if you have a high wall unit, you're basically stuck using the pencil-sized UV light. It's the only thing that's going to fit in there. Cassette units, you can use the small UV, you can use the small air purifier, and usually they can bring in a small amount of outside air. Concealed units are basically the same as the cassettes, but you could possibly add an air filter to those units, but you really got to look at your static. PTACs and VTACs are small, but we make an air purifier unit specifically designed to fit in those units. They work really well. Water source heat pumps. Here you get a lot of filtration options. You can use a media air cleaner. You can use a hybrid. Often we go to the dual stacked filter, kind of designed for those large openings. Based on the ductwork, you can use a normal air purifier or a UV light, or you can put that UV light inside the unit by the coil, depending on your configuration. Rooftop units come in a lot of sizes, so we have a lot of options. You can use UV lights either inside or outside. If needs be, you can use a purifier. You can use active or carbon, and you can use a hybrid electronic air cleaner. Custom air handler units usually have a built-in ERV wheel, and we can add filters or we can add multiple purifiers. Here is a sneak peek of a couple things we are working on. The first is what we call the tunnel of light. This is a UV light kill zone. What goes in doesn't come out. You'll see this in a ducted option and a portable option to hit the different applications. We are also working on commercial indoor air quality monitoring. This will be 24/7 monitoring where, based on an IAQ event, it will activate IAQ equipment. Thank you so much. My name is Greg Joutras with Goodman Manufacturing. Enjoy the rest of your symposium.